Hey everybody, my name is Rydo, and today I want to talk about who is Take-Two Interactive and who is Rockstar. So, to give it a little bit of a backstory, I am a video game critic, reviewer, and I was going to sit down and play L.A. Noire because I recently have covered BioShock, the BioShock Remaster, BioShock 2 Remaster, BioShock Infinite, all games that have an Art Nouveau style somewhat similar to the noir style of L.A. Noire, and L.A. Noire is a good counterbalance to that, considering it's set in a more realistic world than, say, Rapture or Columbia. And so I was doing a little bit of research and trying to do some background investigation to see who made L.A. Noire. So you have a little setup to talk about, and it turns out it's Rockstar Games that made L.A. Noire. Well, that would have been an interesting little tidbit to say 2 weeks ago. Perhaps I could also mention, since E3 has recently happened, that Rockstar Games didn't bother to really announce anything special or show any new trailers for Red Dead, the next Red Dead game, or next Grand Theft Auto game, or any of the other games that you see listed here, for instance, Midnight Club, Max Payne, Manhunt. And as I was going through the Wikipedia, the source of all good knowledge for a moderately bad video game reviewer like me, I started to realize that L.A. Noire, as we can see as I scroll down, is actually the most recent released game of 2011, unless this page is wrong. I guess the Wikipedia is saying the Red Dead series is coming out in 2018, allegedly. I mean, it hasn't come out yet. And oddly, Grand Theft Auto was 2013. So GTA 5 actually the newest game. Also, oddly, Rockstar has made a total of 5 films, which I'm very surprised about. So, still trying to figure out who actually made this, considering how there's several different companies that are under the parent company, Rockstar. It turns out that it is Team Bondi, B-O-N-D-I. And nowhere on the L.A. Noire Wikipedia page is there really any reference to what is mentioned in Team Bondi. I want to say Bondi, but it's probably Bondi. They were an Australian company that only made one game and were apparently only working on another game that would have never been published under that name, certainly. I, in fact, recently, as a couple of years ago, saw trailers and talk about that. But the very next paragraph talks about this controversy where employees were miscredited or completely left out of L.A. Noire's credits. They were allegedly, the employees are saying, were worked 12-hour days, just treated very, very poorly. And when all is said and done, if none of that can be proven, at the very least, you know that Rockstar really just chewed them up and spit them out, oddly selling everything except for the intellectual property rights of L.A. Noire to a company from the production firm founded by the Mad Max director George Miller and producer Brian Kennedy. So any of the other things, any of the code or just office equipment in general, went to a completely different industry. And that is oddly appropriate that we would find out that Team Bondi was chewed up and so spit out, considering the controversy which brings us here today. Honestly, all of this up to this point could have been simply ignored and left on the wayside, or simply mentioned as I was covering LA Noire. What really brings us here today is the fact that Take-Two Interactive has sent out a cease and desist to open for a modding tool used by a lot of people to make other mods for Grand Theft Auto 4. From what I hear, only in single player, so there really isn't even wasn't a reason for them to send it out. And it seems like Rockstar, up to this point for years, has retweeted and tacitly, if not directly, supported with coverage Open 4 and mods made by Open 4. And then all of a sudden, the parent company, just a couple days ago, Take-Two, has sent a cease and desist, and people are very, very upset about it. Arguably, maybe some people should be slightly upset about Kerbal Space Program being bought by Take-Two, also because that might be a bad thing, although in all realisticness, Squad had already fired all of its programmers, the makers of Kerbal Space Programmer, so that game wasn't going to get updated to a better point. Anyways, what makes it even stranger, though, than just Take-Two Interactive and Rockstar being contrary, could we say, being not very helpful, is the vast number of subsidiaries that Rockstar and Take-Two have. This has been going on in the industry apparently for years, of them creating small companies, mostly purchasing and renaming small companies, and then when they're done with them, spitting them out and firing all the employees, or mostly just having them sit around and do nothing. When you look at the number of Rockstar subsidiaries here, you would think there would be a team working on Grand Theft Auto 6, LA Noire 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, at least a couple more IPs that are new. Rage 2, which was a game that they created and had made an entirely new engine for, and then didn't really do anything. And when you look at kind of what they're doing with these groups, it seems like they're not really doing too much. Manhunt 3, Midnight Club, the next Midnight Club game, a next Bully game. None of them are doing any of that, because I imagine each of these Rockstar offices only have like 5 people in it. So, yeah, it's this, Rockstar is this huge company on the face of it, but they're not actually doing anything. They're not actually making any games. Maybe they are. LA Noire is a good example of how long they took to make a game, and because it took them 7 years to make that game, and it really didn't, was mostly because of using mocap and facial scanning technology that they developed. But it gets even weirder. Take-Two, formerly 2K, also known as Take-Two Interactive Software, is this huge Hydra. If you're a fan of Marvel or Greek mythology, it's really best described as a Hydra of a company. Look on this list, particularly over here, and see how many games have been published or made by Take-Two. It is a ridiculous amount. 1994 is their earliest listed game here, made by Take-Two. And in its early days, it seems mostly like Take-Two is making their own games. Here we have one that's made by a separate company and just published by them. But as we go further, more and more games stop looking like they're actually made by that game, made by Take-Two, and instead they're just publishing. In fact, Take-Two is almost completely just publishing now. Even when you consider that Rockstar is a wholly owned subsidiary, where a lot of these other companies certainly aren't, there's just a lot of desire to make money off of other people's work. And isn't that really where people are coming from when they're upset about being allowed to use the mod Open4 for a long time and enjoy GTA 5 for a lot longer because of the mods? Surely Rockstar and Take-Two made money because of mods like Open4 and Open4 itself, and now they're gone. Personally, I would like to point out, though, ever since people have started brigading and downvoting GTA 5, which honestly, I don't know if you should just, if you are going to make a political statement like that, why not downvote all of Take-Two's games, in all honesty, if that's your intent. But ever since GTA 5 in particular has been downvoted, the Steam recommendations, to me personally, have been way better. Because all of the tags of all of the games that are cheap clones and cheap rip-offs of GTA are now no longer considered as appealing. And so now I'm getting much better suggestions. It is also worth pointing out this isn't even the first real controversy with Rockstar. It was just about a half a year ago that Rockstar finally got out of a lawsuit for photo referencing a famous celebrity in their ads. She unfortunately didn't win that lawsuit, and I think it was the right decision by the courts. But it clearly was, I believe, Lindsay Lohan. I could be wrong, though. As we're going down here, we're still at 2,000, so let's just speed up. It goes on and on. There is a ton of games. One might argue there is an attempt here by Take-Two to publish all the games. And unlike Ubisoft, unlike EA, Electronic Arts, unlike Konami, it seems to be Take-Two's desire to publish all the games and literally contribute the barest amount, almost nothing, to the video game industry as far as new ideas and new products. In all honesty, if Rockstar couldn't sell any more of its games, I don't think Take-Two has much otherwise that would catch people's attention. They do have a few sports games, none of which I saw announced at E3. I just spent the weekend covering all of the major conferences, and it's just didn't hear a word one of Take-Two. And I didn't personally know that 2K used to be the name of Take-Two. So they've recently changed their name just to get away from probably some bad press. And it also seems very much the case that they've changed their policy where under 2K they would name everything 2K Marin, 2K Boston, 2K Quebec. Yeah, I don't know if that was a 2K Quebec. Now they allow the companies, or at least and probably suggest the companies make up their own names. So, for instance, the smaller team that was broken off of Ken Levine's group that made BioShock Infinite is now called Ghost Story Games, and does its best to stay small and out of the news, whereas would suspect that Ken Levine would prefer to be completely independent. And we're still scrolling here. I was not joking when I said, look at all the games that they've published. Under different names too. Gathering of Developers, TDK, Mid Interactive, Global Star Software. They are on every kind of console. They are on every kind of PC. They want all the money, and yet very, very little of this is a company that they own. Rockstar 2K actually does own Cat Daddy Games, but how would you even know? This is the Wikipedia page, and it needs some work, actually. It needs people to separate out the ones they just published versus the ones that they actually put some development into. That some company that is a wholly subsidiary, or at least a partial subsidiary of 2K Interactive made, because this is giving way too much credit to Take-Two. Way too much credit. And I started calling it 2K because I'm so used to saying that, but it's the same. So 2K Sports, you can see they had in 2005 NHL, NBA. Apparently they lost the licenses to that because the NBA game that was announced at E3 was Electronic Arts. 2005, and I'm spinning through all of this. There's a Da Vinci Code game released in 2006. Prey was released in 2006, Prey 1, but that is now Bethesda's. Certainly a lot of rights have changed hands. There was a Bully 2006, and Bully and Rockstar Games with Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and then the Warriors came out, and they could have done a better job with that. Major League Baseball in 2007. We're starting to see some more actual games, but notice that a lot of the companies that actually made the games are hired out. I would suspect heavily that Take-Two Interactive is funding more development by subcontracting in the game industry than any other of the publishers, because everybody these days wants everything to be done in-house. Even Sony recently announced that the Final Fantasy remake they were making was going to be done in-house, and usually they want their games to be developed on their own engine to save them monies if the company has their own engine. So here you have BioShock 1 in 2008 by 2K Games. So for many years it was 2K, and still just scrolling. I didn't realize it was going to take this long, so I must apologize. So it really is just a Hydra of a company. It's many heads. So if people want to boycott it, and I'm not particularly opinionated as a reporter one way or the other, if you feel like you should boycott it, by all means boycott it. do as you feel. But I would recommend do some research. Get a list of all the things that they actually made and the things that they published. And then you're going to have to make that moral decision. Is it worthwhile to and appropriate to boycott something that's made directly by a Rockstar Games team that now no longer exists, like Tim Bondi for LA Noire, which is where we started in this video? Or do you want to expand it to every single thing that's been published by 2K Games? Because there's been a lot of that. For instance, Borderlands by Gearbox Software, which is a private company, but they certainly published it. And Duke Nukem Forever, I think everybody is probably already boycotting that game. And we are only hitting the top of it, really. How did Take-Two get to be such a big publisher? I don't understand that at all. They must have done something really great in a former life to have the connections with all these other video game companies and want to publish. Although, you know, Gearbox Software now is doing their own publishing, and Starbreeze Studios is now one of the new and upcoming publishers. So we may very quickly see that Take-Two stops publishing games, which would certainly be interesting. This list is now getting longer, by the way, because they are including Android and iOS games, which didn't exist in the previous decades. I don't know how far you would want to take your boycott, honestly. Do you want to downvote every single 2K game? That's going to be a lot of ones that people actually do like. Borderlands, Borderlands 2, Battleborn, people aren't playing that anyways, so XCOM, published by 2K Games, made by Fire Access Games, which I believe is actually a subsidiary, but maybe not. It's hard to even tell. You'd have to click on every single one of these names and decide. And let's see. The most recent game from 2K that's actually out, Red Dead Redemption 2, is not out yet. Was actually Sid Meier's Civilization in the fall 2017. Not yet. NBA 2K18 by Visual Concepts, or XCOM War of the Chosen, or Sid Meier's Civ 6, or WWE 2K17, or Bully being released on Android and iOS, or NBA 2K VR Experience, or Carnival Games 2 VR. That was a pretty bad game too. There's Mafia 3. That came out recently to some critical reception that was good, but not as much as you might like. Or in my case, BioShock Remasters coming out from Irrational Games, and Blind Squirrel Games doing the PC ports and the remasters of it. Or how far do you go back? Well, I have to leave that question to you. I started just trying to do some background knowledge on LA Noire, which is a game that I will be covering, and now that I've made a separate video talking about all of the history here, which is a real mess, I can mostly ignore all of that and just look at LA Noire and its own quality of its own game. But Take-Two Interactive, current subsidiaries versus defunct, you can see there's quite fewer companies like 2K Czech, 2K Marin, 2K Verse, Cat Daddy Games, Fire Access, Ghost Story Games, Hangar 13, and Visual Concepts, and then all the things that start Rockstar and Social Point. And then when you look at the defunct, there's a decent number of those too. And I think that's where we're going to leave it. I kind of wish I had even more information to find out about Take-Two. But from what I know, I'm going to start noticing Take-Two games. I'm going to start noticing 2K games. And I'm going to realize that even though they've managed to stay out of the news a little bit more than Ubisoft or Electronic Arts, they are secretly working their way in the background as this monolith Hydra organization trying to publish games and make as much money through publishing games while not really doing enough, in my opinion, to actually create new things. If 2K or Take-Two now was the only publisher in town, if only they made games, you would only have GTA and Bully and maybe a handful of others. Imagine all the other games. Even games they published probably wouldn't have been funded if they were the only game in town. It's not a great business practice. That's it for this special video. I end all my episodes the same way. I ask you to like, share, subscribe. When you subscribe, click the notification bell. That helps you know when my videos are available. Comment and watch every second of my videos, because all of that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, all of those links are down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.